Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really focusing our research
Yeah.
right onto your internal monologue.
Yeah. And our mission today, it's pretty direct, isn't it?
It is. We're diving into the principles of personal storytelling, specifically how experts are using language,
Mhm.
the science behind it, to generate real, authentic growth.
And this is where the surprise often lives, I think. Our source material, are looking at studies on self-efficacy, belief systems, that sort of thing.
Right.
It suggests that if you feel stuck or keep repeating patterns that don't serve you, well, the real solution isn't some massive reinvention of who you are.
Uh,
The critical unlock is actually changing the story you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, what you're capable of.
so it's like accessing the blueprint for a more purposeful life by finding and maybe editing this script that's running silently.
That's it, exactly. And it's a fascinating idea, isn't it? That the biggest barrier to your growth might just be this secret narrative.
The one you've been whispering to yourself, maybe since you were a kid.
Absolutely. The research really highlights the power of sometimes quite subtle shifts in language.
So today we're synthesizing the tools,
Mhm.
moving you from being, I guess, trapped by your history.
To being the active editor of your future. That's the goal.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Identification has to be the first step, right?
Hmm.
What exactly is this echo chamber within? I mean, we all have an inner voice, but why are some of these stories so limiting, so good at boxing us in?
Well, the echo chamber within, it's essentially that collection of ingrained narratives. It's the unedited, dominant inner voice that often just runs on autopilot.
Like default software settings.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And
Yeah.
and these stories, they're often formed much earlier in life during vulnerable experiences. And crucially, they're built less on objective facts.
And more on emotional interpretations.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Emotional interpretations of past events. Things like, oh, I'm just bad at math, or I don't really deserve success, or maybe if I try something really hard, I'm bound to fail.
And the psychological impact is huge, I imagine, because they're so old and they run without us even thinking about it.
We start to believe they're just the truth, immutable facts about who we are.
Right.
And that's why they limit potential. They were often designed for self-preservation back then, not for growth now.
So if the story is, I avoid public speaking,
Then your brain actively looks for evidence to back that up. It makes sure you stay in that comfort zone, you perpetuate the pattern, you never challenge it.
so exposing that voice is key. You can't rewrite a script if you don't even know the lines you're saying.
You've got it. That's step one, awareness.
Okay, that brings us to the how.
Mm-hmm.
If we accept this limiting script exists, how do we systematically take it apart? What tools does the research suggest for actually pinpointing these beliefs and, weakening their grip?
Right. This is where we get practical and apply some rigor. The core technique that comes up again and again is what the sources call the truth versus story challenge.
Truth versus story. Okay.
It's essentially a cognitive reframing exercise. You learn to separate the objective facts from your emotional narrative about those facts.
I'm interested in how that works in practice. Can you give us a concrete example?
Sure. Let's say you were recently passed over for a promotion you really wanted.
Okay. Painful, but it happens.
Right. The raw facts might be the company chose candidate B based on selection criteria X, Y, and Z. Maybe they had specific experience you didn't. That's the truth.
Just the facts.
Just the facts. But the limiting story your inner voice might immediately start playing could be something like, see, I'm fundamentally incompetent. I'll never be truly successful here.
Ah, okay. So the technique demands you pause and really cross-examine that automatic story.
Precisely. You challenge it directly. Is the fact that one person was chosen over you proof of fundamental lifelong incompetence?
Well, no. When you put it like that,
Exactly. The negative story is almost always this huge, catastrophic, emotional interpretation. Often, it's just not supported by the actual evidence of the facts. This challenge, it pulls the energy out of that negative emotion because you see the narrative as separate from reality. You see it as a story.
what if the fact itself is negative? I mean, not just interpretation. Let's say I genuinely failed a critical exam. The fact is I failed.
Mm-hmm.
How does truth versus story work then? Does it risk just becoming denial?
That's a really important question. And no, it's not about denial. When the fact is negative, I failed the exam. The damaging story is usually the interpretation layered on top, which
Sure.
proves I'm too stupid to ever pass this subject.
Okay, I see the distinction.
The technique instructs you to hold on to the factual truth. I failed this exam this time, but actively reframe the interpretation, the story about the fact.
So the revised story might be,
It might be something like, okay, the material was challenging and my approach didn't work. I need a different study strategy next time. I am capable of learning this. See? It turns a static judgment about yourself.
Into a prompt for future action,
Yeah.
based on the reality of the situation.
Exactly. It keeps the fact, but changes the narrative from a dead end to a learning opportunity.
That's a much more useful way to look at it. Okay, so how do we capture that dominant voice in the first place?
Yeah.
To actually review it objectively.
Yeah, because it can be slippery. The primary tool recommended is targeted journaling prompts.
Not just free writing them.
Right, more focused. Using prompts like, what's the worst thing I currently believe about myself in this situation? Or what story do I tell other people that maybe minimizes my own ambition or capabilities?
Ah, writing it down makes it concrete.
It objectifies it. Suddenly, it's not this all-encompassing identity. It's text on a page, and text can be edited.
Okay, so we identify, we deconstruct using truth versus story, maybe using journaling. Now for the pivot. How do we consciously choose and build the empowering new script? This is the crafting your empowering new narrative part.
Yes, and this is a very deliberate, almost design-focused effort. We're moving beyond just stopping the negative thoughts.
To actively installing the replacement.
Exactly, installing the upgrade. The source material really emphasizes the neurological basis for this. When you consistently choose and use empowering language, you are literally training your brain. You're building new neural pathways.
I remember the sources mentioning I am statements. How do we use those effectively so they don't feel, I don't know, hollow or fake, like just empty affirmations?
That's a common concern. The key is they need to be specific and, ideally, tied to desired actions or behaviors, not just vague wishes.
Okay.
So instead of the old script running, oh man, I'm really struggling with this project, you consciously practice affirming, I am resourceful and capable of finding a solution.
So it's defining yourself in the present tense with the quality you want.
Yes. The power lies in that consistency. You're building the linguistic foundation of your future self-concept right now. The moment you state I am, you begin to energetically inhabit that quality.
So you're essentially laying down the bricks for this new identity, one intentional word at a time. Right.
That's a perfect analogy. And the other vital piece here is visualization. Not just visualizing the outcome, like getting the new job.
But visualizing the person who achieves it.
Exactly. Actively building a detailed narrative around your desired future self. What does that version of you do daily? How do they handle setbacks? When you mentally rehearse that narrative, you're essentially preloading the new operating system into your mind.
Which naturally leads to the next step, connecting the internal work to external behavior. Because a great script that just stays in your head is, well, it's just theory.
Right.
So how do we make sure we actually action this revised story in our daily lives? Especially when those old, comfortable narratives inevitably try to pull us back.
Yes, the resistance phase. This is critical, and it's where many people falter. That old script is sticky simply because it's familiar. It feels safe, even if it's limiting.
So how do you push through that friction?
The key is aligning your external actions precisely with your new internal growth story. You have to generate real-world behavioral evidence to prove to yourself that the new story is true.
Can you give an example of that alignment? Make it concrete.
Okay, let's go back to the person whose new narrative is, I am a proactive risk taker.
Instead of, I avoid difficult things.
Right. They can't just think that new thought. They have to act on it. So today, maybe that means volunteering to lead a short segment in a team meeting, or sending that slightly uncomfortable but necessary email, or asking that challenging question they'd usually swallow.
It doesn't have to be huge, then.
No, in fact, the sources suggest starting small is better. The goal isn't giant leaps, which often trigger massive resistance and lead to failure.
But small, consistent wins that build momentum.
Exactly right. Use small, consistent steps to solidify the new inner reality. Every tiny action that aligns with the new script generates positive behavioral evidence.
So if the old story is, I quit when things get tough, but the new one is, I am tenacious.
Then finishing even just 10 minutes of a difficult task you wanted to abandon proves the new narrative. It makes it harder for the old script to take hold next time. You're literally retraining your subconscious.
You're showing it. See? This new story, this is the operating reality now. The old one is just history.
Precisely. That consistency is what turns temporary motivation into lasting, structural change in how you see yourself and how you act. It reinforces those new neural pathways we talked about.
It really is the bedrock of making the change stick.
It absolutely is.
So the ultimate aim here is a more fulfilling, more purposeful existence. What does the ongoing maintenance look like? What does living your authentically grown life, as the sources put it, actually require day to day?
Yeah, it's definitely not a finish line you cross. It's much more of an evolving process. Living authentically in this context means constantly celebrating the shifts and breakthroughs as your narrative improves and evolves.
And recognizing that the story needs updates.
Exactly. You recognize that the story that served you perfectly well at age 20 probably won't cut it at age 40. The job becomes one of continuous revision and refinement.
Because growth itself is continuous. If you stop editing the narrative, you risk.
Yeah.
Well, defaulting back to the old settings.
That's the risk. So, sustaining authentic growth requires ongoing self-reflection and revision. Maybe you revisit those journaling prompts periodically. Check in. Is my current story still aligned with my highest vision for myself? Is my external behavior still backing it up?
It sounds like seeing your personal story as the most powerful tool you have for self-creation.
That's exactly what the research suggests. It's the path toward realizing your potential.
Okay, that gives us a really robust structure to work with. Let's try and bring it all together for everyone listening. The core idea is that authentic growth hinges on rewriting your personal narrative.
Mm-hmm.
First, you have to identify that negative script, that echo chamber within. Find the lines.
Step one.
Second, you deconstruct it, using that truth versus story challenge to pull apart the facts from the emotional spin.
Separate reality from interpretation.
Third, you consciously craft the empowering new script, using things like I am statements, powerful visualization, building the new you in language.
Designing your future self.
And finally, crucially, you action it. You align your daily life, your behaviors with that new story, taking those small, consistent steps.
To gather the proof, to make it real, identify, deconstruct, craft, action.
That's the cycle.
And, if we look at the broader implications mentioned in the sources, this isn't just an internal process. The act of living your revised, more fulfilling story, it has ripple effects.
How so?
It becomes a source of inspiration for others. Simply by embodying that revised story, that authentic fulfillment, you demonstrate what's possible.
Wow, so your personal work actually becomes a kind of generous act.
In a way, yes. Which leads us to the final, maybe provocative thought we wanted to leave you with this week.
Okay.
As you think about this, consider not just how rewriting your narrative changes your life, your capabilities, but pause and reflect on how embodying that revised, more authentic story might actually begin to change the world around you, simply by showing up as proof of the potential we all have when we dare to edit our own history.